Welcome to the Retention Edge podcast. For this week's episode, I'm sitting down with someone who spent nearly 2 decades helping brands turn more of their existing traffic into revenue. I'm talking with Brian Massey, founder of Conversion Sciences, where he and his team focus entirely on conversion optimization and post-click performance. Brian, welcome to the show. You're the founder of Conversion Sciences. Why don't you give us a brief introduction to yourself and we get started?
Sure. Yes. Brian Massey. I founded Conversion Sciences in 2007. We are an agency completely focused on conversion optimization. So primarily post-click optimization. We look at everything from UX and UI to messaging, images, and then strategic things like products, packaging, bundling, pricing. We're generally hired because people are not getting enough revenue from the traffic that they're getting, and there's usually some on-page reasons for that. But we work with clients for years and become kind of more of a strategic partner.
Fantastic. So you're wearing a lab coat. You have the title of conversion scientist. Can you tell us a little bit about what it means in practice, why it's important to your work?
Why our work is important?
What does it really mean, conversion scientist? Tell us a bit more.
Yeah. So a conversion scientist is basically what we're doing is we're using data to make better decisions on the decisions you make when you're building websites, when you're building landing pages. So that's really where the science comes in. And that's what we're doing. So the scientific method is our primary process, and it's worked for a number of centuries. And it works great across different businesses, different website types. We look at the data. It gives us some ideas of what could be going wrong. We develop some hypotheses as to how we could make it better. And then we design experiments. And those experiments can be everything from user testing to A/B testing. We run the experiment and see if, in fact, that was a good idea, if we were able to improve the performance. That data gives us more to work with. We go back and look at our hypotheses and say, okay, what's next?
Fantastic. That makes me think we work with a lot of e-commerce brands at Mobiloud, and we see a lot of brands that are focusing heavily on acquisition. In our case, they come talking to us about retention, which sometimes is not their primary concern. I imagine you might encounter brands that have a similar approach to conversion and really looking at the funnel and the customer experience. I'm wondering, where do you typically see brands not spending enough time looking for opportunities for improvements in their conversion rates?
Well, it is, it's a full-time job. So a lot of clients come to us and they do have some sort of conversion optimization program in place. The problem that they're doing is they're kind of they'll meet once a week or once a month. They'll have a brainstorm about what they're going to test next. It will be, smartest guy in the room's idea or something like that, and they'll go and test that. So what you end up doing is testing a lot of things that A, didn't need to be tested, or B, weren't really a problem. And so the problem is that these optimization programs run out of steam because they have inconclusive test after inconclusive test. The thing that they really need to be doing is spending the time and the data. We're smart people. We've been doing this a long time. We can look at a page and come up with 20 to 50 good ideas, best practices for how to improve them. And as brilliant as we are, we'll be wrong on at least half of them, maybe even more, because this particular audience needed something different. So you have to back those up with data. And that's where we'll use analytics. We'll watch session recordings, which takes a long time, but you'll begin to understand if this idea, this hypothesis for how to improve things really is a problem, or if it's not. Heat map reports tell us how people are interacting with specific pages. and getting, either user feedback or taking ideas to panels and asking them if this is communicating better. Are other ways for us to run those experiments. So, kind of throwing things against the wall and seeing what stick is a very expensive way to run an optimization program. You really need to let the data tell you where to go.
Makes sense. So start with analytics in looking for the problem, right? And start with talking to potential customers as well, as you mentioned, panels to try and find ideas. Then come up with an hypothesis of what could drive the improvement, right?
Yeah. Or the other way. I mean, you can come up with an idea. So, like, here's an idea that's worked for a lot of our customers. On the e-commerce side, the rubber meets the road on the product pages with that big add to cart or add to bag button. But the problem might be that you're not getting enough people to the product pages. So, the analytics data will tell us where to focus on things like that. So, but you can look at a page and say like, oh, I think they should be doing this, that, or the other. Then you go and you look at the heat map reports or you watch the session recordings to see if in fact people are struggling with, you want put the title in bigger a bigger font or have longer product names on the product page or bring more of the description up to the top. Um, uh, you know, you can see in the heat map reports if they're having to scroll down below and reading the descriptions. So it kind of supports your hypothesis. Um, if you find plenty of people just looking at the images and clicking add to cart, then maybe it's not such a good hypothesis. So that's how we hedge our bets to go from the industry standard is 1 in 7 tests is a winner to 1 in 3, 1 in 4 is a winner when you let data decide what you're going to test.
Makes sense. I wonder in the current context with AI automation, AI entering the customer experience as well on your customers' websites. How are things changing for you?
So this is a question that we're asking ourselves all the time. So at what point could an agent replace a conversion scientist? These experienced people who know analytics and testing and are good with customers. Um, there are plenty of people who are doing this. Uh, what you're finding is pretty much what you would get from an experienced heuristic optimizer. So somebody who's going to look at best practices, stuff from their experience, stuff that they've read in research, going to throw these ideas out. What we don't have yet is the agent that can then go look in analytics or review watch session recordings and validate those ideas. We haven't seen that yet. Where we are seeing, at least in our business, AI making a big impact is on messaging. So it is, first of all, most copy on websites is not very good, especially in the business to business lead generation side of things, and even business to consumer. A group of people have written the copy and it suffers from groupthink. And it's even hard for us to come in and say like, oh, well, we need to improve the messaging, but then write in a way that's different from the way our brains work. It's hard for humans to do, not hard for the language models to do. So we have a, a, a format that we use, a structure that we use to help the language models rewrite copy in different voices. So we can get an idea of what the biggest segments of visitors want in terms of how they're being spoken to. This is an amazing power. And the thing is, if you're looking at like descriptions on product pages, it will do it very consistently across multiple products. And usually you have to run tests across multiple products to get to that statistical significance. So this is a new capability that is absolutely fantastic.
And how about when AI enters the actual customer experience? Have you encountered a situation where that creates a challenge for you guys? I'm thinking about chatbots potentially replacing some of the typical user behavior on a website.
Yeah. So we are actively watching the growth of AI. So it's a combination of search bots coming, some agents. We don't think that people coming from people doing search in ChatGPT and coming to your website from there. It is growing. There's kind of a hockey stick plateau sort of a thing going on right now. But we have to be prepared for that. And so the magical question for 2026 is, when do you implement agentic commerce protocol on your site so that, because people are going to be shopping products across multiple brands in the ChatGPT app. It's kind of going to be the place where commerce happens. Does that happen by the end of 2026? I mean, I saw some statistics that I find hard to believe, but large percentages of Walmart's visitors are shopping through agentic commerce and things like that. Walmart and Target were two of the ones on that list. I think they're the early adopters. They should be, but for smaller and niche e-commerce sites, is now the time to do it? Do we want to wait? For those people on Shopify, do we want to wait for Shopify's solution for that? It's all kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah, it is. It is. If we talk about an older trend and one that we know well, which is mobile, um, what do you see is a frequent mistake that brands make in how they approach mobile versus desktop, and any specific quick wins that you have experienced when it comes to building a better experience for mobile?
Yeah. So the biggest mistake there, and you really see it again on product pages, is delivering a smaller version of the desktop page. So not a lot of thought seems to be going into how you reorder things, what things you remove from those pages, what things you add to those pages because it's on a smaller screen. Um, you know, a, a, a mobile a mobile site might need a very different sizing guide for an apparel website. So um, obviously, I think that the move to mobile is going to be accelerated by agentic processing. But starting mobile first is probably these days the best way to go about it for most e-commerce sites. So you design a mobile product page and a checkout process that is tuned for that, and then kind of blow that up into more of a desktop size thing. Even
Yeah,
today, though, for the most part, mobile visitors convert at much lower rates than
yeah.
desktop.
What do you think is the explanation for that typically?
It's a combination of, the filling out forms is harder on mobile. The on-screen keyboards are just, it's more difficult. It's easy to make mistakes. Autocorrect changes things, and so you get a lot more errors in those. Um, Things like single step checkouts um, can create cognitive load. So they're scrolling and they keep getting more fields, and they're like, "Oh, this is going to take a while for me to, have this um, purchase." And so they can find themselves going, maybe it was a little too expensive. It just adds, it takes enough out of the cognitive bank that it makes people abandon. Um, the process of understanding what the bottom line price is going to be. So if I have to fill all of that stuff out before I understand what tax and VAT and shipping is going to be, creates abandonment even before they see the final answer. So we like shipping offers that eliminate shipping. So free shipping is great. Fixed price shipping, so you can tell them what the shipping is going to be on the front end. Um, and it's a bit of a challenge to get taxes in there, but estimating those things for them, and then removing some things that aren't working. A lot of sites are implementing um, pay over time methodologies. It adds another thing to the page that we have to look at and consider. We typically show another price, the monthly price. So you're unanchoring them from what the total cost is. And today we're finding that, well, with our customers and the sample size of e-commerce size companies that we've worked with, it's not a big revenue generator right now. So um, it's thinking really hard about what you're adding to those pages. Adding that cognitive load is really what's driving that abandonment.
That makes sense. And what's the flip side of that? Have you found anything that brands can easily add and get a boost to their mobile conversion in particular?
I mean, the very straightforward things is get some ratings and reviews. People want to look at that. Make sure that you have some poor reviews on there. They want to see what the worst case scenario is. If it's like, somebody gave it a 1-star review because they didn't like the packaging, then you're like, I mean, if the products are good, then I'm okay with that. Um, Using images is really important, and most of the sites now are doing a good job with images. But borrowing some of the playbooks from Amazon, you can really lay out the entire value proposition of a product on a product page by using callouts. So integrating words onto the images, so that the person doesn't necessarily have to go and read the description. The images as they're scrolling through are laying out the value proposition for them there. And making sure that the primary calls to action are high in the visual hierarchy, so that when they go looking for that add to cart button, it's very obvious. We've had good luck in adding a sticky footer that had that add to cart button, so that it's always on screen after they scroll a certain period of time. Um, and product descriptions are very important, usually to a certain segment of the audience. So spending some more time trying different versions of the way you describe your products can really make a big difference depending on the product.
Makes sense. I'm thinking about site performance in general. I remember seeing statistics from Google about, you know, how slow your site is will immediately have an impact on conversion if you actually go above, say, a 3-second load time, etc. Have you seen that confirmation in your own experience and
Yeah,
experiments?
absolutely. It really creates kind of a ceiling. So we can optimize and optimize, but if it's slow loading, and especially on mobile where you don't always have the best connectivity, it will absolutely create a ceiling that you're going to have trouble bumping up against. So that's one of the first things that we look at when we start with a new client.
What's your typical process with a new client, as you say?
Yeah. So when we start off, number one, we want to make sure that the analytics is accurate and that there are no blind spots. Most of our clients are on a Google Analytics, and if it if something doesn't generate a URL out of the box, you're not going to see it. So most websites are implementing entrance overlays. It's a strategy to handle cart abandonment, and we want to know how those are working. But typically, unless you create an event that tells analytics that it opened, that somebody dismissed it, or somebody responded to it, um,
Right.
it's invisible. So that's one of the sort of blind spots that we want to make sure we're tracking. A lot of buttons that people would click on that are part of the flow are invisible to analytics. We want to compare the data coming out of analytics to the back end so that we know that they correlate, which tells us that analytics is not missing a lot of transactions. Inevitably, analytics will miss some. Um, but we want to make sure that the decisions we're making in analytics are telling us the truth, what's happening in the real world. So that's the first step. We obviously want to make sure that there is a um, session recording and heat mapping running in the background. Microsoft has a really excellent free product now. Um, Hotjars is very popular and relatively inexpensive. Those are the two that we see most commonly. And we need to implement an A/B testing tool, which we can help choose. There's a wide variety of A/B testing tools at different capabilities and different price points. So that becomes the digital lab that we set up. And we want to validate that. Typically, we run an AA test to make sure that the tool's working right, et cetera. Uh, Then we dive into the data and we start asking questions about, why are there drop offs at certain places in the funnel? Are we seeing a lot of people looking at the category pages but not getting to the product pages? Tells us there's something going on with the category pages. And we'll grade the traffic. A lot of people optimize for bounce rate, but bounce rate is probably a better gauge of the quality of your traffic. Are you bringing the right people?
Mm.
Um, and anything ancillary to that, like, such as list building. We want to make sure that the calls to action for that are strong. If you have a newsletter, nobody wants another email, but you can sell that information better. Um, After that, we've got a long list of hypotheses. We've done the research to figure out which ones are most likely to move the needle. We design an experiment and see if we can statistically improve the conversion rate. A/B testing is typical, and I assume your audience is familiar with A/B testing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that must be. I'm curious about landing pages. So you mentioned product pages, and of course, that's the kind of default and the first thing you would think about in an e-commerce context. But creating a specific landing page for, say, a product bundle or an offer, and it's typically a best practice. Am I right?
Absolutely, especially if you're investing in advertising. So first of all, your product pages are probably your number one landing page for most ads you're doing, especially if you're doing like Google Shopping ads. Um, but if you're making claims on, groups of products on social media, for instance, bringing them to a category page may not be the best approach, especially if you're saying like we're having a 15% off sale, and you bring them to the category page. It's particularly not going to say anything about a 15% off sale. So a landing page that highlights the most popular products, and actually can even be built out like a category page, but you make sure that you mention, you know, certain products are on sale. These are the ones that are on sale. And you want to keep the promise made in the ads, and landing pages is the best way to do that. I think e-commerce companies um, underutilize landing pages. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. And you were talking about different funnels, potentially different sources of traffic. How often do you go beyond the website really to look at the full picture of how traffic is created in the first place?
So our learnings inform the ads. So especially as we find things in messaging that are working on the website, they can take those things to the ads. We are interested when we're working on messaging and calls to action. We're very interested on what's getting the most clicks. Beyond that, though, we don't do a lot of work with our clients on bid management or even developing out creative for those ads. One area that we are often pulled into, and no e-commerce site that I know is doing well without understanding email, and how, we love to get another shot at people. So if we can use an entrance overlay or exit overlays on abandonment to get an email address, um, then how that email traffic comes back is really, really important. And even beyond, abandoned cart emails, how are you on a daily basis getting your people back to buy again? Very, very important, and usually very high converting traffic.
You were talking about opt-in forms of some form. I'm curious about any best practices, any mistakes that people tend to make. I know it's an area that people are typically quite sensitive about. They worried about annoying people, right, or impacting conversions because now they're distracted filling in a phone number or an email address in a pop-up box, right? What's your take on that? How do you see it, and how do you approach it with your customers?
Well, it's very easy to measure. So entrance overlays, as I say, they if we can get an email address early on and somebody puts some things in the cart and then doesn't check out, you have an opportunity to use abandoned cart strategies with them.
Yeah.
But you should test. So should it open immediately when you come in? Should it open after a certain period of time or after they've scrolled a certain distance? Um, you can measure that against people who don't see the opt-in overlay and compare the conversion rates to those two groups. And so the answers are usually pretty easy. You might, for instance, find that you have fewer purchases for when people see an overlay, but that they buy more. Um, so you can make a business decision on those situations. We um, uh, I think people use exit intent overlays much too rarely, especially in that checkout process. So somebody's seeing something that they don't like. An exit intent overlay can do anything from uh, promise that discount that is usually offered.
Yep.
And I mean, there are a number of things. Make your offers time delimited and have a countdown timer. Scarcity is introducing scarcity or fear, loss aversion is a great way to get people to go ahead and give you that information so you can continue the conversation.
Yeah. And pay attention, right? People get distracted. I guess distraction is one of the biggest things you're fighting against to some extent, right?
Absolutely. And especially on those mobile devices where they might be shopping while they're waiting for a table or waiting in line at the bank. Does anybody do that anymore?
Yeah, I think that's maybe an old example. Amazing. In terms of quick wins that you find, typically brands, we counterintuitive to think about. Things that surprised you are things that you tend to recommend the most. Anything that you would suggest in this context?
Yeah. If we're talking about e-commerce sites, I think that product page that does a good job as a landing page is really important. Um, and we've had good luck actually kind of turning product pages into more of a landing page look and feel. So the product page is typically image, title, SKU, star rating, some sort of a description, and sizing and color choices, and add to cart. Um, Presenting it more as a landing page where you have more of a traditional header that shows the primary product, and then a section lower where you can see other pictures, a lot more text that explains why this is a great decision. Um, in one situation, we've found that to work. So uh, every audience is a little bit different. So the linchpin is how much of a considered purchase it is, or how much of a emotional purchase, how rational or an emotional purchase it is, as to how you're laying out the information on the product pages. Um, in checkout on e-commerce sites, we often have wins with reminding them why they should buy from you, and that includes what is your return policy, what are your warranties, what are the key bullet points of your brand, that you're high quality or biggest selection or lowest price guarantees. You have to remind them of that through the purchase process. Too often we just leave them sitting there with a list of products and a form, and as they're looking at all of those fields they have to fill out, they need to be reminded why they should get through that. So that's an area that is a big win. And then, category pages that require too much to parse. If you come to a category page and everything has a sale badge on it, it doesn't help me choose. So being more judicious on your badging, like which is most popular, which is editor's choice, help me choose, is really what those category pages are designed to do. On the lead generation side, asking for more information than you're actually using in the form. Uh, Sometimes you need all of that information, and it's a qualifying component. Um, but could you stretch that out over a multi-step process? It sounds counterintuitive to add steps to the process, but if you can get people to have wins as they're going through, they gain a certain momentum. And we found that asking the series of questions and then asking for the contact information at the end can have a significant increase in completion rates. So, um, and in lead generation situations, that message has got to be right. So you've got to really build value around them sharing that information with you.
Right. What have you found works best for that?
In terms of,
Creating value. Is it something like a lead magnet? Is it more about discounting? What do you tend to see working best?
well, so in like um, in an e-commerce world, it's usually done with discounts. But if there is one of our clients offered an inexpensive freebie, so you get a pair of safety glasses. Um, you make that offer as soon as you come in. It's $4 for them, and probably another $5 to ship. And they're willing to pay, uh, you know, $10 odd for that lead because we've done the calculation and they know that they get $15 from everybody that's on that
Yeah,
list. So it works out. And I think for those e-commerce sites that have repeat purchases, um, calculating your wins based on the long-term value or the lifetime value of that customer is really, really important. If you're looking at the transaction size of the first transaction, you don't want to consider things like that. You don't want to consider things like free shipping because it feels expensive. But when you look at how much you make over, in the case of the goggles, they looked at the 3-year value of their clients, and it was very profitable.
to offer that freebie.
Yes.
Makes sense. I've seen some brands building interactive experiences as people drop or before they drop an email address, like telling their brand story. Have you seen anything, say, unusual or not, or atypical in this context?
So, I mean, nothing along those lines where you come in and you kind of get a little multimedia show.
Something like that. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
honestly, I see the opposite. So, and it just in communicating your brand value, you can um, use the hero area, um, either of your landing pages or of the homepage. And typically, a lot of traffic does come to like a homepage. Um, and what people do is pretty much show the products, they show the company name, and that's it. So, how are you differentiated? And this is something that most people don't realize is that your navigation bar, your primary navigation bar, is really, really important at communicating what you do. Um, so if you have navigation items that are like shop, discounts, it's not as effective as
It's like everyone's,
men's
right?
shirts, women's shirts, and talk about what you do. Um, and you can put in there our promise because there will be a segment of your audience that'll be these humanists that want to know what's going to be like to do business with you. Um, so I think the opposite is usually what I see is they don't do a good enough job of saying like we are, biggest inventory, lowest price, highest quality, um, stuff you can only find from our overseas shoppers. Define what your differentiators are. Use that instead of discounts and things like that to really, I think it helps both from a initial purchase and also a retention. Because for us, retention is about joining a tribe. I'm going to choose your brand over and over again because it's a brand that's targeted at people like me. So I'm signaling my in group by buying from you. And we just don't do a good enough job in the voice we use in our product descriptions, the words we use on our home pages. Um, and, you know, I think it's a missed opportunity.
So you're almost saying retention starts there.
Yes. Yes. Help me know what group I'm joining. It's scary because there are going to be people that you're going to be opting out. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm not a member of this group. Um, but the most profitable buyers are going to come in and, over long term are going to be the best buyers when they feel like they're a part of that in group.
So it's almost okay to alienate those that are not part of that loyalist group or potential have the potential to be, because you're going to get a stronger impact with those that actually do belong and for which the product is designed.
Yeah. And not only is it okay, it's kind of required. When you start defining who is in, you define who is out. There was the most recent Bud Light thing happened a couple of years ago. It's not the most recent, but certainly the most public. They wanted to expand their group. They wanted to expand the in group, and the group that was loyal to the brand was like, "Oh, I don't identify with those people. So clearly, this product is no longer signaling who I am, for better or worse." Um, so yeah, you've got to be comfortable with who you're not letting in or not attracting.
It sounds like you help your clients with a lot of what it takes really to create that rhythm of experimentation that's really needed for the job here. I'm wondering if you have any advice for those that are trying to create that culture internally.
Hmm. Wow. So it is. Um, I so people hire us to make more money from the traffic they're getting, and that lasts about 4 to 6 months, and then they hang on to us, and our relationships are years and years. They hang on to us because they feel that somebody has their back. Um, and it's an interesting, um, I guess it's an interesting line to walk because at one point, what you're doing is designing experiments that might say that the choices that they made were not the good choices. And so that has some negative impact. So I think that you need to position yourselves as that person or that group that has their back. And the way we do it is because we do so much research on the front end to figure out what's worth testing and what's not worth testing, we have some analyses that will tell you more about your visitors. So you'll find out that iPhone people act very different from Android people when they come to the site. You'll find out that there's a whole group of people that visit this page and they have a crazy conversion rate. You'll find out that people who use your search bar have a crazy high conversion rate. And the question is that just the way good customers behave, or could you get more people in that group by making search easier, more prominent, that sort of thing? And so as you start bringing these insights into the organization, people will be like, "Oh, that is that's very helpful. I'm so glad that somebody's looking into that. I'm very busy. I would not have had time to do that." So it's um, sharing those insights and being cognizant that finding out the bad decisions you've made is might step on some toes. So there's a bit of diplomacy in it, I guess.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Well, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on the show. I certainly learned a lot today.
Well, I'm glad.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.